Whether to flesh out a battlefield with more bodies, find a way to bring to life the armed forces in a believable way, or hide the fact that production was taking place nowhere near the location it was portraying, war films are arguably more proficient in trickery than any other genre, short of science fiction. There are countless ways that war films have been crafted to be as entertainingly immersive and real as possible, but some of these tricks are true achievements, and produce results so effective that you'd never even know you'd been tricked at all, unless someone on the internet put them together in a convenient list, of course. So with that in mind, I'm Gareth, you're watching What Culture, and here are 10 war movie tricks that totally fooled you. Number 10. Philippine equipment was used instead. Platoon. Authenticity is incredibly important when it comes to war movies. Yes, an audience will typically have to suspend its collective disbelief for a couple of hours, but with a subject matter as heavy as war, it needs to feel as immersive and real as possible. And for those films that depict the United States Armed Forces, the US Department of Defense will often lend a hand, whether that be with equipment, costumes, or location. Typically, this will come as a trade-off, with the DoD being able to look over the script ahead of time and implement changes regarding its depiction of the American military. This was a benefit that wasn't granted to Oliver Stone when he directed the seminal Vietnam War drama Platoon in 1986, though. The DoD reportedly felt that the film gave an unglamorous depiction of the US Armed Forces, and so declined to offer its services. Charming. Instead, with shooting taking place in the Philippine jungle, the production looked to purchase and borrow equipment from the Philippine military, much of which had already been procured from the US to begin with. This undoubtedly helped in terms of realism and authenticity, and was a factor in Platoon becoming one of the best Vietnam War movies of all time. Number 9. Palm trees in England. Full Metal Jacket. The first film on this list is one of the most iconic pieces of cinema ever made about the Vietnam War, as is the second, 2 for 2. Releasing just 1 year after Platoon, Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket instantly became another addition at the very top of the list for this particular genre. However, though both movies told stories set during the same conflict in the same part of the world, their production locations couldn't have been more different. While Oliver Stone shot Platoon in the Philippines, Kubrick chose to shoot in England. The legendary director lived in the UK at the time and didn't relish the idea of flying, leading him to keep production close. While convenient in terms of travel, it posed certain issues in creating a realistic set this side of the pond. And this was something that was tackled by the film's production designer, Anton Furst, in a bid, and a successful one at that, to lend the typical scenes of England a more tropical feel. Furst flew in 300 palm trees from Spain. This was a stroke of genius, folks, as watching the film you would never think that it was made in jolly old England. Yeah, there's not many palm trees here in Manchester, I must say. Number 8. Stealth helicopters. Zero Dark 30. While some movies tell broader stories of conflict in particular wars, others zero in on specific events, some fictional and some not so fictional. In the case of the latter, Zero Dark 30 told the cinematic version of the hunt for Osama bin Laden. By its very nature, an operation like this is shrouded in secrecy, and no amount of help from the Department of Defense was going to open certain doors in terms of portraying the events as accurately as possible. Arguably, the biggest example of this in Zero Dark 30 is the stealth helicopters. Towards the end of the movie, when an almost decade-long manhunt appears to reveal the whereabouts of the target, the CIA are in a position to storm said safe house. To do so, they used stealth helicopters. Images of the actual helicopters used have never been revealed to the public, and so the production team on the film had to get a little creative. Using a photograph that allegedly only shows the tail rotor of one of these helicopters, the team worked backwards to create an incredibly realistic design that didn't feel out of place in the slightest. Well played. Right, quick question for you. What is your favorite war movie of recent times? So like in the last 5 years or so? Let me know in the comments. I want to know. Number 7, 14 different horses played Joey, Warhorse. The saying goes never to work with children or animals, as particularly in the case of the latter, they can prove to be impossible to control. However, what Steven Spielberg and his team achieved with Warhorse in 2011 confirmed that this rule could be broken. There were reportedly over 100 horses used on this production, but what could have been make or break for the film is that the titular horse, Joey, acted as the protagonist for the entire story. He needed to bring emotion to proceedings, something that would seem an impossible task, but that Spielberg and the film's horse master, Bobby Lovgren, made happen. Now, you'd be forgiven for thinking that Joey was portrayed by two horses throughout the film, one as a foal and one as an adult. However, there are actually 14 animals utilized to portray this one character. 1-4. Yep, as explained by Lovgren himself, different horses brought different characteristics and subtleties that would suit some scenes better than others. In the same way that a movie needs to find the right actors to play the right parts, Warhorse needed to find the right horses for the right scenes. And they did so with 14 of them. In other words, it took a lot of horsepower to get this Joey right.
Want to stay safe online and save big? Get up to 76% off a 2-year NordVPN plan, plus 4 months free and up to a $50 Amazon gift card. Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description and it's all yours.
Number 6. Hiding the Australian backdrop, Hacksaw Ridge. Shooting on location can cause any number of different problems for different movie productions. While Full Metal Jacket required bringing onto set an abundance of trees to lend a heightened feel of authenticity, Hacksaw Ridge had to deal with quite the opposite. You see, Mel Gibson's 2016 effort was filmed in Australia. Naturally, this is a very different landscape to Okinawa, Japan, where much of the movie was set. One of the biggest issues production had to tackle was how to shoot without the eucalyptus trees in the background shattering the idea of the scene taking place in Asia. With a limited budget, VFX wasn't a sustainable option, so instead the crew dug a pit, essentially a huge bowl in a field 12 to 14 feet deep. This allowed for the cameras to have a full 360-degree turning circle without any trees cropping up. Clever. Then there was the titular ridge itself. Though an actual cliff was scouted in Australia, it was impossible to get cameras to where they needed to be. Again, the production team began to dig, creating their own ridge on the same field 30 feet deep and 60 feet wide, with scaffolding in place to accommodate the positions of the cameras. If in doubt, dig! And if you're enjoying learning about the clever ways these war movies tricked you, then tap that subscribe button for even more fascinating What Culture videos just like this one. Number 5. Cardboard cutouts on the beach, Dunkirk. Over the past 2 decades or so, Christopher Nolan has become one of the biggest directors of his generation and a household name to mainstream audiences. The likes of the Dark Knight trilogy, Inception, Oppenheimer, and others have seen the man rise to almost unmatched levels of popularity. He's a bit of a big deal, Chris. And it is no secret that the director is not a fan of CGI, and will always use practical effects where possible. Some of the biggest spectacles within his films have been created practically, from the Trinity test in Oppenheimer to building an actual rotating corridor for Inception. But there have been many smaller details that have avoided computers as well. It's typical when shooting a scene with big crowds to utilize extras, and then fill out the numbers with CGI in post-production if necessary. However, Christopher Nolan is nothing if not typical, and while shooting Dunkirk went down a different route. Over 300 extras were reportedly in play while filming on the beach. Though instead of using CGI, Nolan bumped up the numbers using cardboard cutouts. Yes, a film with an apparent budget in the region of $100 million used cardboard cutouts as background characters. And had it not been for pictures taken of the set itself, no one would have noticed, would they? The practical king strikes again. Number 4. Disguised Russian tanks, Saving Private Ryan. As far as war movies go, Saving Private Ryan is widely regarded as something close to a masterpiece, which is a hard opinion to argue with, so I won't. Like many war films based in and around World War II, Steven Spielberg's 1999 outing was forced to get creative when introducing the German Tiger tank. Due to the fact that there are so few left in the world, and even fewer that would stand up to the rigors of a production shoot, the Soviet T-34 model was instead used with a tiger facade built around the chassis. Though there are some mild inconsistencies to be found with Saving Private Ryan's makeshift tigers compared to the real thing, they are largely inconsequential, and all but invisible to the untrained eye. Did anyone notice or truly care that the tigers should have had overlapping wheel designs on the tracks, or that the commander hatch should have been locked from the inside? No, they did not. And if he did, get a grip. Particularly when compared to some of the earlier World War II films that utilized a similar tactic, Saving Private Ryan's disguised T-34s were about as convincing as could be hoped for. Number 3. Removing dust to add dust. Black Hawk Down. Creating an authentic and believable environment is important for any movie. But as said previously, this is particularly vital when the narrative surrounds war. This list has seen film productions do impressive things in order to create such a feel. But while it has to be realistic, it should go without saying that the audience, and not to mention those working on the set, also have to be able to see what is going on. During the filming of Black Hawk Down, the helicopters being used would have kicked up an incredible amount of dust. And while this was, of course, realistic, it would have taken any and all visibility away. So, as described by Ridley Scott, he had to dampen the ground and control the dirt and dust that would have otherwise obscured everything. This then would have looked incredibly unnatural and unrealistic. So, while the dust was deliberately minimized while shooting, it was then added back in using CGI during post-production. Still a believable environment on screen then, but without hindering the ability or work of the director in the slightest. Yeah, good job there. Number 2. Joe Estevez replaced Martin Sheen. Apocalypse Now. Though being a film star is considered something of a dream job, actual movie sets can often be tense, grueling, and explosive places to be. Apocalypse Now is infamous for this, as there were multiple issues inside and outside the control of those involved, exacerbated by the fact that the shoot lasted over a year longer than it was initially scheduled. One such struggle came between star Martin Sheen and Francis Ford Coppola. Marlon Brando was notoriously difficult to work with while making Apocalypse Now, but it was Sheen who had such a falling out with the director that someone else had to be brought in when recording the voiceovers. During the troubled shoot, Sheen suffered a heart attack, and so his brother Joe Estevez was brought in as a body double for 3 months. During that time, he and Coppola got to know each other, and so when Sheen wouldn't record his lines, his brother was called yet again. Now, Estevez and Martin Sheen sound eerily similar when speaking, even taking into consideration the fact that they are, brothers. So it is no surprise really that Joe could be used as a voice double without causing the film's already shambolic production any more trouble. Number 1. The Hidden Cut, 1917. Following Lance Corporals Schofield and Blake as they journey through German-occupied territory to deliver a potentially life-saving message, 1917 is one of the most immersive war movies ever. This is because the film is conducted with an almost continuous shot from start to finish, and because the audience experiences the events in real time, with the exception of Schofield being knocked out for several hours, it feels all the more real. However, the movie certainly was not filmed as a one-shot. Far from it, in fact. To portray something like this would have required masterful camera work, meticulous planning, practically unending practice, and a lot of patience. Only then could the very sneaky camera cuts be made possible without giving anything away to the audience. There have been 35 hidden cuts found throughout 1917's 2-hour runtime, according to an article by Screen Rant. But unless you're watching this with the specific intent of finding said cuts, and scrutinizing every single second of the film, there's absolutely no chance you would spot them. There may be even more than 35, with no guarantee of 100% of them ever being found. But if you do find any more, let us know in the comments. Why not, eh? Now have yourself a great day and tap on another What Culture video right here.